My next question, because your colleague Jeff Merkley basically said he's prepared to try to shut down the government over some of these sledgehammer actions that he's seeing by Elon Musk. Are you prepared to shut down the government, to join Democratic colleagues who want to stand in the way of keeping the government open?
Well, you have to look at what the Trump administration is doing right now. They are simply trying to, they are simply trying to dismantle the government. So yes, look, if we have to take steps to be able to hold them accountable, use the leverage that we have to force it, I cannot support efforts that will continue this lawlessness that we're seeing when it comes to this administration's actions. And for us to be able to support government funding in that way, only for them to turn it around to dismantle the government, that is not something that should be allowed.
So just to be clear, Senator, you are open to voting yes to shut down the government, to make this point.
This is on them. This is about whether or not they can get the votes. They are the majority, and if they cannot govern, then you know, that's for the American people to see. But I've worked in government. I've worked through multiple government shutdowns. I would be the last person to want to get to that stage. But we are at a point where we are basically on the cusp of a constitutional crisis, seeing this administration taking steps that are so clearly illegal. And until we see a change in that behavior, we should not allow and condone that, nor should we assist in that.
Senator.
All right, guys. So with the Democrats and the mainstream level media still raging over Elon Musk, trying to expose the corruption of the Democrat Party and all the wasteful spending that's going on within the government, the Democrats are running out of options at this point, right? They're trying to figure out a way to stop Elon Musk. And some Democrats and the liberal media, they got to the point now where they're throwing out trying to shut down the government. They're saying, you know what? We may just let the government shut down and for the country to default on its debt in order to stop Elon Musk. That is what they are proposing to do, as the budget deadline is coming up to fund the government in mid-March. Take a look.
But when it comes to the tools in your toolbox, there aren't a lot of them. One of them is to try to stop the government funding, to try to do maybe even default on the debt, as I said, or at least force that if the Republicans don't change course. Is that the strategy?
Let me just put it pointedly. The strategy is to do whatever we can to stop Donald Trump from hurting Americans, from making us less safe, less secure, and from raising our costs. We will look at every single tool in our toolbox, as we've done this last week, to make sure that we stop him from hurting people. At the end of the day, Donald Trump has promised America, I will bring down your costs and I'll make you safer. He clearly is doing the opposite. In addition to that, he's opening the floodgates for corruption in our system, from getting rid of inspector generals who have a track record under Democrat and Republican presidents of saving Americans billions of dollars from waste, fraud, and abuse, to letting Elon Musk, one of our biggest government contractors, one of our biggest military contractors, have access to America's most personal information, from your grandparents' medical information all the way down to people's Social Security information and other things. This is an astonishing allowance of corruption and abuse and violations of people's privacy and other most sacrosanct values. We are in a crisis right now, and Democrats will use every tool possible to protect Americans, to drive down costs, to make us safer. These are the very opposite that Donald Trump is doing to Americans right now.
Yeah, so you see, now you heard that. Now, essentially the plan from Democrats, it sounds like to me that they're going to try to use the government shutdown as leverage over the Trump administration to force them to fire Elon Musk, right? That is what Democrats are trying to do, right? Like, that's the new plan, because Republicans are still debating over the budget, okay, and spending and government funding. And there's speculation that some Republicans may not get on board with the agenda, right? And if that is the case, then Democrats are going to have some leverage over Mike Johnson to start making demands if they want to avoid a government shutdown. And one of those demands could be to have Elon Musk be fired. Now, we're going to talk more about that when the time comes. I mean, right now we're still a month out from that. So there's a lot of negotiations that are happening right now in Congress in regards to what the spending package is going to look like, what are the tax cuts going to look like, how they're going to be paid for, things like that. All that stuff is going to be worked out. But I'm just letting you guys know ahead of time that that is where Democrats are at, right? That's how desperate they are. Now, in the meantime, you have federal workers. They are lashing out, like the federal workers that essentially have lost their jobs at USAID, claiming that they're concerned about their privacy, okay, and being doxxed and exposed. This is what they claim that they're concerned about. This is what Democrats claim they're concerned about, and the liberal media is concerned about as well, too.
Why in our conversation do you think you need to remain anonymous?
It has been a very hard week. Personally, professionally, as I said, I live in Washington, D.C. Many of my colleagues work in this field. Starting from January 21st, so the first day of the new administration, things started to go sideways very quickly. The atmosphere of fear that was in the USAID building, which we're no longer in, the atmosphere of fear in terms of not knowing who was in the building, not knowing what their motivations were, not knowing if our emails or channels were safe, not knowing how to interpret these executive orders, right, around DEIA or administration priorities. All of that created an atmosphere of massive insecurity. And so people have, I think, lost the ability to know what's true from what's not at this point. Everyone is really scared. And so, I have a daughter, I have a family like most Americans, and I want to be brave. I think it's really important to share our personal stories at this time, but I am afraid, and I just don't want to put them at any more risk than I have to.
I just talked through about some of the very young, in some cases very problematic, given their posts, people that Musk is surrounding himself with to help carry out his plans. And does any of that surprise you about what we've learned about these people? And what else should federal employees know about the kind of people he seems to surround himself with?
I mean, sadly, no. I wish it were surprising, but again, it's sort of a very tired and old and boring playbook, right? Anybody with any sort of experience is not attracted to the kind of confusing and toxic work environment. I think it's very appealing to a certain kind of person. We saw it at Twitter as well. They were inexperienced engineers from his other companies, who even knows what the legality of that is, coming in and evaluating, my team's code, other people's code. We had to do performances of loyalty of literally printing out code, physically standing in line like we were about to be scolded by a teacher, and sitting there and having to justify our teams. And I'm hearing parallel stories, frankly, of multi-decade federal employees having to sit in front of a child and explain to a child why they shouldn't be fired. Not only is that demoralizing, it's insulting. It's actually insulting to the legions of federal employees who do hard work every day.
No question about it.
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that. Fascinating stuff. The same individuals who are advocating for the Doge team to be doxxed because the world needs to know their identities for transparency's sake, right? These are the same people that are now concerned about federal employees being doxxed. Now, I want you guys to understand, it's totally fine for unknown bureaucrats to see all of your sensitive information, right, and to work behind the scenes and to send taxpayer dollars overseas to stage coups and stuff like that. Totally fine. Totally okay. Okay. Liberal media, not worried about it. Okay. But when you have Elon Musk and his team, when they go in and they decide to expose this corruption and to try to make the government more efficient, then apparently that's a problem. Okay. And we need transparency. But they don't think that transparency is needed when mysterious, unelected bureaucrats who, again, nobody knows about, is doing things with our taxpayer dollars that the American people disagree with. The hypocrisy is stunning, and this is why this attack is not working. It's not landing, okay? We've already went over the fact that President Trump's approval rating is still going up. It is still rising despite these attacks from the media, and that the American people are behind the president, and the American people are impressed by what President Trump has done thus far. And at the same time, the Democrat Party, their approval is declining, okay? They're becoming more unpopular. In fact, they're more unpopular than they've ever been, probably in the history of the Democrat Party. And this is where they're currently at. So with that being said, I want to react to this clip from CNN of Republicans basically delivering that reality check to the liberals on the panel.
Here for me, because I understand that it's on the one hand Washington bureaucrats, deep state, whatever it is that you call it. But on the other hand, the notion of him really accessing personal data, a lot of information, and doing we don't know what with it, that doesn't give you concern?
No, it doesn't, because he's not going to do anything nefarious with this information. It's almost as if you're doing an accounting, a forensics accounting of a company. You need to have access of everything in order to say we should make cuts here, or this is ineffective or inefficient. He's doing what the president has mandated for him to do, in part what the American people expected Donald Trump to do. And as it pertains to Democrats, Democrats have had every opportunity to come to the table to offer a solution to cutting government spending. Once upon a time, they actually believed in that. Instead, all I have heard is whining, complaining about what Trump is doing, what Elon Musk is doing. The American people every single month, Dan, has to balance their budgets. They have to see how much money they can afford to pay for certain things and how much they have to cut back. Why shouldn't the federal government do the same? You would think that my Democratic friends would agree with that. Yeah. And I have seen the exact opposite.
Can I go quickly, by saying he's not going to do anything nefarious with it, you're putting a lot of faith in somebody whose stated aim is to move fast and break things. And when you move fast and break things in government, it can have a real impact on people's lives. So I think just asking the American people to trust that Elon Musk isn't going to do anything they wouldn't be comfortable with their personal data is a tough sell to the American
Democrats
people.
had 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration to bring up all of these things they're now complaining about: cost of living, housing, et cetera. They said absolutely nothing.
That's not
when
true,
eggs,
and
gas, et cetera, was going up 20 to 50%. They said nothing to the Biden administration.
Yeah, and furthermore, to address this woman's point, nonsensical point, really, it's like, again, they're unelected bureaucrat that nobody knows about that has access to my sensitive information, right? This is already a thing. And I guess the question comes down to, okay, well, who do you trust? Do you trust Elon Musk and the Doge team with it, or the unelected federal bureaucrat that you don't know about at all with the information? Well, likely I'm probably going to trust the people that I know versus the people that I don't know, okay? I'm just saying. Also, on top of that, Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. He doesn't, what incentive does he have to do something nefarious with the information? What incentive? What does he really gain out of it? What does he really gain? I don't think he really gains much of anything at all, to be honest with you. But, the unelected federal bureaucrat who nobody knows that does have access to the same data, well, I think those people have much more of an incentive to do something nefarious with it than Elon Musk. So, this argument from Democrats that, the Doge team is getting access to sensitive information.
Ken Burchett from Tennessee. He sits on the Oversight, Foreign Affairs, and Transportation Committees. Congressman, thanks so much for your time on this Saturday. We appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Listen, there are concerns from some Americans over Elon Musk's methods in going through these agencies, accessing what is very vulnerable data. Why are you confident this is secure?
I'm confident it's secure just because of the caliber of the people that they have doing it. It's odd to me that the Democrats are sniping at these young folks, and they're 19, 20, 21, 2-year-old folks, but you've got seniors in both parties who are inept of any cognitive skills almost, and are incapable of governing. And we've seen that in the past, and they've embarrassed us in the national press. We've had them fall down. We've had them stumble and verbally in press conferences. And so I have total confidence in this group. I think that the gripes are, you're not seeing it from the old school Democrats. It's the young liberal Marxist types that don't approve of $2 million. They approve of $2 million in sex change for folks in Guatemala, or $6 million for tourism being spent in Egypt, or LGBTQ comic books being given to kids in other nations. Those are the things that America is disgusted about. We've had this Hurricane Helene just ripped through our country, and the poor people in Upper East Tennessee and North Carolina basically were living in tents and didn't have electricity or water till President Trump came in, and we'd already allocated $100 million for that. Where's that money going? I think America is just fed up, ma'am, and they're tired of the overtaxing and over-governmenting, and they're seeing the results.
I hear you.
I believe that Elon Musk knows a lot more about cybersecurity and protection of data than the federal bureaucrats who are running the system know, to be honest with you. So, when you look at the incentive structure, Elon Musk doesn't have an incentive to be careless with who he's hiring or to be careless with the data, because if something does happen, then hey, that's going to make President Trump look bad. And ultimately, that's going to be bad for Elon Musk, because if he loses President Trump and the support of President Trump, then it's over, right? I mean, whatever he's doing with Doge is over, okay? So ultimately, at the end of the day, the incentive for Elon Musk financially is to protect and to guard the data and to not do anything nefarious. So that's why I'm not that worried about this, right? I'm not that concerned about all this.
I just want to say, first of all, welcome to the CNN family.
Thank you.
I also want to tell people who might not know that you just came from within.
Yes.
You worked in the Department of Justice for several years, so you are coming with fresh information about being inside one of these agencies that is very much on the chopping block.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I have to agree that, okay, fine. You want to make cuts? Make cuts. There are significant conflicts of interest when it comes to Elon Musk, and that is the problem. He owns several businesses where personal data and personal information could benefit his financial interests. And the sources that I've been talking to within the FBI are actually terrified that he is trying to put people within the FBI in order to advance his financial interests. One example of that is he wants the FBI to start using Starlink. So how frightening is that? The fact that he is putting people with
Starlink is his own internet company.
Which is his own internet company. He wants FBI to start using Starlink to start tracking people. Now, that is terrifying to me, that he's not acting, as Scott likes to say, on behalf of the president. He is acting on behalf of himself. And I think people should be very scared about that.
You're terrible.
No, I'm not scared about that. Again, here's another thing they keep bringing up with Elon Musk. Is that, well, Elon Musk, he has billions of dollars in contracts with the federal government, with the Pentagon and the military. He just trying to make himself richer. Here's the thing. Here's the problem with this argument, right? Their argument would be valid if Elon Musk and his companies, like, for example, SpaceX and Starlink, and some of these other services that the government uses, if these services were bad products, right, their argument would actually be valid. But the issue here, right, is that Elon Musk having the government use his companies is actually the most efficient thing that the government can do. That's the crazy part, right? That's the crazy part. They keep talking about Elon Musk and his companies and conflict of interest. Is like, well, the government's best option is to actually give more money to Elon Musk, right? If the government wants to be more efficient, they actually should just give him more money, okay? Instead of doing it themselves, they should just get Elon Musk to do it because he's better. Look at NASA. Look at NASA. SpaceX has saved NASA billions. Here's some solid examples, okay? These numbers will blow your mind, okay? When it comes to NASA developing the Falcon 9 rocket, for NASA to make a rocket like that, it would cost between $1.7 to $4 billion. In contrast, SpaceX, Elon Musk, was able to develop the Falcon 9 for approximately $300 million, resulting in savings of $1.4 billion to $3.7 billion. SpaceX has saved U.S. government-related space operations $40 billion. $40 billion in expenditures. That's how much money Elon Musk has saved the government. So when you talk about, oh, there's a conflict of interest, he's going to have the government use all of his companies. And it's like, well, that is what they should do. That's the decision they should come to if they're trying to be efficient, right? That it is what it is. His products are just that good. Like, I mean, that's just what it is, right? Like, give you another example. The $40+ billion spent by the Biden-Harris administration to bring internet to rural America, okay? They haven't connected anybody at all to the government internet. They haven't done it. Although they spent $40 billion. Haven't done it. Now, they could have contracted with Starlink and did it at a fraction of the cost. But they didn't do that, right? That's the problem. That's the issue, okay? So liberals can make this argument all they want about conflict of interest. I'm not saying that the argument is incorrect, but the problem with it is that, well, at the end of the day, regardless of if Elon is influencing the decisions that the government makes if you have people in charge that actually want to make the government more efficient, they're going to use Elon's companies, right? I mean, that's just the right answer. And if people have issues with that, then you're basically saying, well, we need to spend billions more dollars. Let's waste more taxpayer money because we hate Elon Musk. That's what it comes down to at this point. That's what it comes down to.
Terrified that the FBI might have the internet? I mean,
I'm terrified.
I'm
terrified that Elon Musk is putting people in federal agencies to figure out business opportunities for him.
I think
and
it's
you know
overblown.
that's true,
This
Scott.
is the richest man in the world. This man,
That's concerning.
And he's like sleeping on a whatever on the floor of a
That's
government
his
office
MO.
building
That's what
7
he
days
does
a
when he
week
breaks
in order to help this government. The spending is interesting. We're not going to balance the budget based on these spending cuts, although some of this stuff is patently, objectively ridiculous. And when I see Democrats rushing out to defend some of the things that that he's cutting, I mean, it makes the Democratic Party sink to very low levels. But what I see him actually doing, and the most important thing he's doing, is enforcing the doctrine of common sense. This was the doctrine that Trump laid out in his inaugural address. What is the ideology of the Republican Party right now? It is best described as enforcement of common sense. We have uncommon nonsense on the left, and we have common sense. And when you look at what the government is doing, agency after agency, and spending some of our money, we're not going to balance it on a $79,000 grant here or there. But we are going to restore common sense, and that's the point.
Well, if Republicans were serious about balancing the budget, then they should put forward a tax package that doesn't explode the deficit. So if we want to have that conversation, we can have it.
Democrats
because
balance the budget
because
after 4
that's
years
just not where the Republicans are.
You're for higher taxes.
But I think that
you want to continue.
I'm for a tax code that doesn't explode the deficit and actually benefits working people and business, and not just the richest people. Like by the way,
let the Trump tax cuts expire?
like Elon Musk.
You
By the
wanna
way,
let the Trump tax-
We're working people benefit
but I also
after
think.
Notice how she didn't answer that question about the Trump tax cuts. Good job, Scott. I've been advocating for that for a long time, for one of these Republicans to just ask these Democrats who always come out here and talk about, oh, the tax cuts are just for the rich. Okay, so you don't support extending the Trump tax cuts, right? You don't support that? That's all you got to ask them. They'll never answer the question, why is that? It's because if they come out against extending the Trump tax cuts, then they quite literally are for increasing taxes on the middle class, because the Trump tax cuts weren't just for the rich, as Democrats claim. They also were for the middle class. The middle class got a tax cut from President Trump, and they're going to get another tax cut again. And Democrats will be screaming and crying, talking about how the billionaire waitress ended up getting a tax cut from Trump, right? This is what they'll be talking about. This is what they'll do. Their party is that silly at this point. They're that silly.
4 years of Biden and Harris? Absolutely not.
I also think, if I may, please, friends, I also think that this Elon Musk tirade through the government, while I understand the appeal of saying we're doing things differently, we're making cuts, people want to see smaller government, I understand the messaging imperative behind that, of course. I do think it is ultimately going to blow back. I think you cannot send somebody who, for all of his private sector brilliance, knows nothing about how government works in to take a machete to programs that protect people, that provide SNAP benefits, that protect them from overreach by credit card companies in the CFPB.
I will just say one. Go ahead.
No, I do think Democrats have to be very careful not to fall into a message that sounds like they are just knee-jerk defending institutions, because I do think that that's not going to be a winning argument. But I think that the impact on consumers here is going to be real.
This is the issue, though. Democrats do need everything. Trump is like the 80-20 president. He gets on the right side of all these 80-20 issues. Democrats knee-jerk and take the 20. And then what happens? Today, CBS News poll this morning, Donald Trump sitting at a 53% approval rating, the highest he's ever recorded in that survey. Why? Because Democrats are taking the wrong side of all of these obvious issues, number one. And number two, they're giving him an enormous amount of latitude to move fast and break things, which I heard used in a pejorative fashion. But when you're talking about the government, that's what people want.
Well, and Democrats
Trump to do.
Democrats continue to say we have all of these amazing, brilliant people in government that's going to make everything run effectively and efficiently. And for the average person, they're saying, well, hell, we've been looking at these same people running this stuff for years and years, and everything fails. Everything is in disarray. So disrupt it, shake things up, and let's see if we can have some.
Okay, everybody's.
Yeah, those are all good points made by the Republicans on that panel. I mean, they're 100% right. Democrats have no room whatsoever to tell me who's qualified to do what with the government, right? Especially considering over the last 4 years how they ran the government into the ground, okay? So again, their opinion is just irrelevant, right? The mainstream media, their opinion is irrelevant as well too. And the proof is, look at President Trump's approval. And this is despite the liberal media attacking the man 24/7, okay? Trump derangement 24/7, highest approval ever for him. I'm just saying, I mean, the attacks clearly aren't working. This whole President Elon Musk thing clearly is not working. It's not working out in favor of the Democrats. And I don't think it's going to work out in favor of them. I think that the more that gets exposed in regards to the spending, it's just going to make them look worse and worse and worse while they try to defend it. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.